Yes, indeed. Now we've got another perspective on the matter. We've got O'Neill Lajuwon, who is the CEO of Wavelength Integrated Power Services Limited. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Well, this question of whether this new regulation is going to threaten funds or power sector loans, but you know that those are things that the discos have no reason, no basis to declare force majeure. Some say they've got a performance agreement which prevents them from doing that, and so they can't. And BPE say they flatly rejected that, saying the minister does have those powers to go ahead and do what they've done. So what do you think is going to happen at the end of the day?
Well, you know, it's my second time being on this show, and I think the first time I was here was in February, and I'd spoken a lot about it. To me, it seems the force majeure is inevitable. What's happening is the discos have held back the value chain. Now, let's look at the obligation. The obligation of the disco is to provide power to its customer.
Yeah.
All right? Plain, straight. Are they doing that? No. Why? The customers are not metered.
Whose fault?
The disco's fault. The discos have not metered the customers. Now, when I said last year, early this year, they went into it, you know, with empirical, empirical facts. You know, they didn't do their due diligence properly, and this is
with respect to the metering.
The metering, yes, was not anticipated.
Wow.
You're right. And what is happening is, if the customers don't receive their meter, which is the way, the only fair way to pay for electricity, how do you recoup the investment?
So are you saying that, if I understand your point, this inevitability of the force majeure, as you say, is foisted upon them by themselves?
Of course. Absolutely correct. I mean, you can't want to eat your cake and have it, right?
But
So,
where then comes the question of the regulation
Yeah.
and how it affects power sector loans?
Well, the regulation, the minister is, you know, is going after everybody. I mean, he's a lawyer. Without proper regulation, no investor will want to come into the sector. So there has to be a well-tight framework for regulation, and this is what is happening.
But is there any basis? Because when you see this from a distance, this eligible customer regulations, you think that, oh no, it's intended to hurt the discos. But that's not the case, because the way it is to, when they say it's to bring about competition, it's such that if LPUs, large power users, don't like what's happening from one disco of the 11 discos, they could go elsewhere. Directly to the generating companies and get power. Just the same way, what's that word again? When you port from one network to the other. It's the same thing.
You caught me off there, yeah.
So why is it that they don't like this?
Yeah, well, I think we're very much on the same page. I was going to use that analogy, funny enough. And I will go back to metering. Now, the discos want customers to buy their own meters. The fact is the discos don't manufacture meters. It's not in their obligation to manufacture meters. Their obligation is to supply power. And now back to your analysis, your analogy or your description of what it's like. Take, for example, the communication sector. Just imagine MTN says, look guys, you have to buy my phone so that I can plug into my system and use my infrastructure. What's going to happen? They're not going to be able to, carry out the whole network or the whole transformation that is happening in the mobile sector properly, right? And the reason being is MTN came with 2G and went to 3G. Glo came with 4G. There are different devices that work with this. The meters are not there for customers.
Even though we have meter manufacturing companies in the
We
country.
do, yeah. So you see, we have meter manufacturing company in Nigeria, and the discos have been going to China, going everywhere to try and import meters because they're trying to cut costs. Even though the Nigerian manufacturers are producing at a reasonable cost, right? But the discos are quite greedy, I'll use that word. And they're not doing the right thing. And so this is affecting the whole value chain.
But if they say they've got fears that, wait a minute, if this eligible customer regulation is there to take away our LPUs, what do we do? So everybody wants to protect their territory. But does the tariff rebalancing, for instance, does it speak to this issue?
Very much well. Without proper metering, you can't have a cost-reflective tariff. So which means it's one of the issues in the power sector. If you don't have proper metering, how do you tell your customers, look, I'm going to jack up the price? These discos are not serious. The government needs to do something, and this is what's been done. The eligibility declared is what is being done. And so if that is going to making them jittery, not without a doubt, and they're coming up and saying, no, force majeure is like, okay, I'm divorcing, please. It's not my fault, it's not your fault, but we're going to have something, you're going to pay us off or whatever.
What do you see coming out of this whole scenario?
What is going to come out of this whole scenario is it's going to revolutionize the sector. And so the transition electricity market will be able to move in the right direction. I'll tell you, this is not in the past administration, you had a program called CAPME.
Yeah.
Capital Advance Payment Metering Infrastructure. That program was meant, any customer can go and buy their own meter. But the discos didn't fly with it.
Even though they took some of our money.
Of course.
But now when they stop the policy, our money is gone. We're gone.
Gone. So people have paid for meters and they still don't even received it.
No, right? We're talking about people in the millions now, because if this were to go further into this, it will result in maybe some kind of litigation. But that's on the one hand.
Yeah.
And then looking at the options, for instance, if we have to get the say the IE, that's Ikoyi Electric. I'm sorry. Ikeja.
Okay.
The Ikeja Electric.
Ikeja, KEDC, yeah.
If, for instance, the people under that catchment area are not satisfied with the kind of services they are getting, what stops an eco-distribution zone from coming into that area?
Well, that is a very tricky one. There's nothing stopping a co-distribution coming to that area. What will happen is a co-distribution can go and actually build a power plant, all right, get a land, build a power plant, and do their own IEDN, which is independent electricity distribution network, all right? Create their own distribution network, and what happens, they fly over all the so-called acclaimed infrastructure that the discos are claiming they have.
Are they allowed to do that, or is it the customer that will do that?
If you have a customer, electricity is a willing customer, a willing buyer, but you have to be able to buy bulk. You have to be able to buy bulk. All right.
But let's say you have an estate with 50 houses or 100 houses, or just about 5 estates with a total of 700 houses.
Fantastic, even beautiful, because then you have as long as you have the infrastructure to receive the power at bulk, all right, then so be it. And so therefore you see the discos, they're jittery because what's happening? The revenue is no longer assured. They're going to be kicked out.
But that's going to be a major concern if their revenue is no longer assured. And then they say, look, we had an agreement to ensure you guarantee revenue for us. So if you're going against that, don't they have a right to kick? No.
They only, truth be told, right, the government, the federal government has not really kept up to their own promises. And it's as a result of the discos. The government promised 6,000 megawatts within a short period of time, right after this, it was privatized.
For generation?
Yeah, for generation.
Do we have the capacity for that?
Oh yeah, it's getting close to that. It's getting close to that. But without proper metering, all right, you can't get the revenue that will stimulate the sector. Without revenue collection, look at it. The disco is the customers are at the end of the value chain, right?
Okay, you know what? Yeah. Let's go to break. We'll come back and let you expatiate a little further on that. Join us again.